Hi everyone, welcome to the next part in my Gilding a Monogram Wreath series. Here I'm just mostly painting and cutting through this video and letting you know what my process is. For these stamps I'm using this Peony set by Altenew, just in case you wanted to know which stamp set. And I also use some others, but I don't have them handy here. So just enjoy. I'm just gonna paint here and you can watch me paint, and there's not really much I have to say about it. I just pretty much stamp down the images and paint them in. But I do show some specific techniques with gold sort of near the end of this video, and I also show some freehanding, some twigs and some flowers and stuff like that. So just keep watching, and I hope you're inspired to create a wreath of your own. So I'm showing a little bit of painting the peony here, and this is initially on sort of crappy watercolor paper, and I eventually get to better paper. But if you want to see the full painting of all these peonies, please see part 2 of this series. And this one is more about the cutting out of the flowers, but I do show a little bit of the footage here in case you're interested in seeing me paint these flowers. Okay, so here I've progressed to getting my bee onto the watercolor paper. You can transfer it on there in a variety of ways. And then I've assembled all my little elements around it just to give myself an idea of what it's going to look like. This isn't the final, but it really gives me an idea of how it's going to look, and I'm very pleased with the way it looks. And then I'm going through this process here, and someone has stolen my chair already. And if you hear any puppy noises, that is my puppy Sherlock. He's a Scottie and he's only 6 months old, and he's making a lot of noise chasing these cats. So sorry about that interlude, but I'm putting these through my scan and cut too. These are just on really the cheapest watercolor paper possible. I mean, I'm talking the crappiest, because I was just playing around. So I'm gonna have to change my blade strength. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but it's not 140 pound. It's probably like cardstock, really. It's that flimsy. But the cool thing is I wanted to show this process in. I was just playing around with some shapes here, but I'm scanning this in as I sit down on my cat to make her leave. I'm scanning in the shapes to data, so I'm saving those shapes, and then hopefully I can just do a whole green background and just cut out a bunch of these shapes. I'm gonna see how that goes. So basically that's all I'm doing here, is I'm saving the best of these shapes so that if I feel like painting just a big green watercolor background, and then I can just save these shapes to the machine and come back and just cut out multiples of them. But I didn't end up doing that, and I'm not sure I will. It just seems like more work than it was worth. I'd rather just paint the elements and then come back and cut them out. You going crazy? What are you doing? Okay, I've determined through my test cut that the cheapy watercolor paper is a 4.5, and I've chosen these 3 to cut, those 3, and I'm gonna hit go. I've taken one piece out, and there's the branch, and it looks pretty good. Okay guys, I can't believe this, but it actually cut out these little berries in a way that I didn't have to put that white border there. I just I can hardly believe it. How amazing this machine is. So look at that. I didn't want to cut that one because I didn't like it. But look what it cut. It cut all of those. It cut that delicate little thing. I can't believe it. You can see, look, you can see through it. Oh, it's just amazing. I'm so blown away. Look at that. Okay, my machine just finished cutting my next practice sheet of watercolor flowers. These flowers were my first tries, and I colored them in with Copic markers actually on really cheap watercolor paper. This was it was my first test run, and they don't look as good as the ones on the final watercolor paper with my real watercolors. So I didn't end up using a lot of these, but it still gave me a lot of experience and, you know, just testing this stuff out to see what would work and what wouldn't work. Looks amazing. It cut out all those buds perfectly that I painted, and those leaves, and even those tiny little flowers. You can see the cutting there. Okay, here is my sheet of watercolor flowers, the peonies that I watercolored. Here are the peachy red ones. Oops, I just noticed that I didn't do the green on that one. Oh well, I'll do it after. Or I suppose I have to wait to cut that one. Here's the yellows. Here's the purple berries, the purples, and the pinks, and the buds. So I'm just about to feed these into my machine to scan and cut, color. I gotta remember to change, it's 140-pound watercolor paper. So as per my key, that is a 7.5. And it's set to 7 now, so I have to remember to change that. And I have my paper stuck down with this painter's tape, it's blue tape, so I have it all. My sheet was relatively flat because I used minimal water, and it's a really good paper. So there is not much warping. So I'll cut these out and then I'll be back. Okay, so I scanned the whole page, and these were the ones that came out favorably. And so you can see this one and that one and the 2 purples and all 4 buds. The rest I didn't bother with, and I took a couple off, and then I'll do them separately because I find when you go back and you just do one, it scans totally differently. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit go. And this one, as you can see, is already coming up. See how it did. Wow. That's amazing. There we go, another one. Oh, it cut a little off the petal there, but still you don't see it. It's funny, it didn't indicate that in the preview, but I'm okay with that. It still looks good. And I'm gonna cut these, I'm gonna do those separately. Okay, I'm going to cut this one. Now, you see this light petal right here? It's reading that edge as white. So if you see right there, it's reading that as white. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna try to resolve this. I'm just gonna take a gray, a very light gray marker, and I'm going to try to draw a darkish line around here so that it reads it, and then I'm just going to cut it off myself. Yep. See, now it's perfect. It's even inside the gray line mostly. I wanted to go outside the gray line and I would just cut that off myself. But that's cool. So, perfect.
Okay. Cut. And...
Okay. Yep, see, look at that. Perfect. If you can see that. Okay, so that's it. That's my little fix-it there for that wonky scan. Okay, so this is what the next scan looks like. It's a bit wonky at the bottom there, but I'm just gonna leave it because I can either shape it myself. See, it's supposed to be this little point right here, but it's just cutting off flat. I'll twist it so that another flower is covering it. The rest looks good to me. So we're gonna go. So the next are these berries, and I was really worried about them, thinking, how is it ever going to cut that? But here's what it came up with, and I am so happy with that. I can't believe it. It's amazing.
So I'm going to go, okay, cut, and...
Okay, it's done. Okay, there's my sheet. This is now garbage. Over here with all my other cut sheets. And I'll finish painting that leaf and then cut it out after. But here's all the shapes it cut out. Sorry for the dirty mat. But look at that. I'm beyond impressed. If this doesn't make you get a scan and cut machine, I don't know what will. Because that is beyond impressive. And there's the pile of flowers ready to be made into a wreath, but I need lots of greens too. Okay, so I've chosen some watercolor paper to put my wreath on. I'm just picking this 80 pound because it doesn't need to be thick because I'm not actually painting on it. And so here I'm just laying out all the elements just to get an idea of how these wreaths will look. I'm really happy with the way it looks. Isn't it cool how you see the shadows like that? I really like that it's a 3D sort of feature. And the ones with white around them I'm going to put underneath against the paper, and I can actually use them like that because I just think it gives it that craft feel. And there's my centerpiece. It's going to look like that, like basically 3 or 4 flowers and just greenery coming out. And there's my secret little sparkly key. I'm going to hide little elements in there like the sand dollar and that little key for my niece. And yeah, so I'm just getting an idea here how it's gonna look. My aunt's wreath is a little less whimsical looking, and my niece's wreath is gonna be a bit different. So I'm just deciding where to put little buds and placing things. And that's what's cool about when you cut out the elements like this. You can basically rearrange the elements and do whatever you want with it. And right now I'm looking for a stylized D, which I'm going to watercolor and then cut out. I was just going to watercolor on the paper, but I figured if I didn't like it or I messed up or anything like that, I would have to scrap the whole piece of paper, whereas if I do the initial, I could do it a few times and test out colors and cut it out of my scan and cut and then just try different colors. And anyway, Dahlia tonight, I showed her this bee and she said she really liked it. So I think that color looks with the, I want to do the gold on there too. So with the green and gold, I think looks really nice in there. So, and she liked this one the best. So at this stage, I have 2 wreaths to make. So I'm just gathering the elements and putting them together to see how it will look, and it will look good. And I'm practicing the colors on these stylized bees, but I'm planning on making a more beautiful D and a B. I'm designing the bee myself actually, so that's why I'm just checking out the colors at this stage, but the actual font of the D and the B will change and it will become much more ornate, and I actually gild it with 24 karat gold. So I'm just saying this so you can see the development of the process, because at the beginning I was just moving around elements like that stylized bee, but the bee ended up changing. And so here I'm just doing more elements. These are branches, and I'm visualizing in my mind, you know, sticking these branches in amongst all that foliage that I just showed you I was arranging. And I was happy with the way it looked, so at that point I thought, oh, I'm gonna put some branches in. So as you can see, I'm painting these very loosely and they're super easy. You don't need a stencil or a stamp or anything like that, because you know, you basically just use green and brown and just lightly paint the twigs and branches. Also, I'm using pretty crappy watercolor paper here, and it actually doesn't matter because when it's cut out, you can't really see a difference. So that's a real plus to this way of doing artwork as well, like cutting out elements. I can use elements cut out from the cheapest, I mean $13 watercolor paper, you know, really bad stuff, and it still looks great. The only other thing I can mention here for a tip is, you see how I'm painting the branches in a curved way? That will help arrange them in the wreath without them being, because they're very long, so if I were to make them straight, they would just stick straight out in a straight line. So I made them curved, and that will just help them curve around the wreath a little better. And worst comes to worst, you can actually just cut them in half or cut little sections off them and place them where you need to in the wreath if they end up sticking out too much. So just so you know, these branches cut out perfectly well in the scan and cut machine. I don't have the footage of it, but just know that they cut out beautifully. Okay, so I keep playing around with I'm just making flowers for the wreath, and I just keep playing around, and I forgot to film it. So, well, I didn't think I'd be going this far. So I'm playing with my Fine Tech interference paints and duochromes, or whatever these are. And the gold is really beautiful. I'm incorporating a bit of this green and this bluish green and a bit of this interference purple in here. And I'll show you what I've been doing. I just have this stamp of leaves, and what I'm doing is I'm taking out of my Distress Ink Mowed Lawn. These ones down here were from a darker one. I used, what did I use? Green Hills. That one's Green Hills, actually. And it's permanent. You can't play with the ink like you can with the Distress Ink. So I switched over to the Distress Ink, and the Mowed Lawn makes a really pretty leaf. So I'll just show you. I'm kind of out of room. I'm going to cut these out after. So I just stamp it like that. And that's a blue green, like a cool green, but I want it warm because botanicals are warm. I've got my Magello Missions out here. That's where I'm getting my greens. Let's see if I can get everything into shot here. So whatever, I'm just taking some Hooker's green and some brown or whatever. And then actually I'm just, first of all, I just do water. And just really quick, like you're painting it yourself. Then I'm quickly dropping in my own colors. Sometimes I've been going for these ones. Just putting in a bit of olive green there. And then some of this Van Dyke green, which is dark green. I've just been playing with dropping that in. Super fast. I'm not even caring about it. And then putting this, making this gold in there, dropping that in while it's wet is just, oh, I don't know. I just really like the look of that. Look, I'm stamping. I'm going like this. I'm not even caring where it goes. There, and look at that leaf. I just think it's beautiful. This one. And that's it. I'm just playing around with different looks, like more gold. Then sometimes I just come in and re-wet it again like that and stick some dark in there. I'm not even resting my hand. I'm just, loosely seeing what happens. Okay, and then I was going with the, I've been making flowers here and just putting some gold on it, but I don't want to go too crazy with the gold because I want the wreath to look classic and classy. So I was just, this flower here used to be pink like this and I didn't like the look of it, so I just kept working it, and then slowly I went into the purples, and then again with the dropping in of this gold, it's just, I decided to make it look like a bush of smaller purple flowers. It looked like this before and it just got messy like that one. That one's, I'm not going to use it. But this looks kind of cool with just the purple dropped in, and these leaves look beautiful. They just look like they're gilded with a little bit of fairy gold kind of thing. I'm going to try to recreate that one. That's the Hero Art stamp. Try this. It's Green Hills. See, it's pretty neon. But I think I just put, see, and it's not, it's the ink's going into the paper. You can't really, I think maybe that's why it looks interesting, because it didn't bleed out at all, because it's a different kind of ink than the distress inks, which you can work like watercolor. So that stays put, and then I can come in Of course, you can argue that you could just simply paint these shapes pretty easily just on your own freehand. But any beginners, or if you just don't want to think too much about it or whatever, sometimes it's nice to just stamp it out and have a little template there, and then just make each one a little bit different. And it's just a different way of doing it. So, but certainly you can feel free to just paint them freehand. You can always do that too. But I find these shapes, if you find one that cuts out well, then it's just, you know, it's just a lot easier when you go to cut them out from the machine, to have them one standard shape that you know is going to cut out. Anyway, so that's me using these fine tech, and I have more of these colors, but I'm just not finding uses for these specialty colors. Here's a couple of them here. It doesn't look great not in the shine, like it just looks like a dull color, but then in the shine it looks really cool, if you can see that. And this looks beautiful. Both this one and that one and this one in there. So it's got purple and pink iridescent or interference colors in there. Anyway, I just thought I'd film that part so you could see what I was doing, so the flowers just didn't come out of nowhere. In the end, most of this was just playing around, but I only ended up using most of these green and gold leaves and the purple and gold one in the center. I didn't really use those 4 red ones because I just wasn't happy with them. But the other ones I ended up using in both wreaths. So I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please stay tuned for the next part, and eventually I will get to gilding the initial on the wreaths. Thanks for watching. Drop me a like and subscribe if you care to. Have a great day.